morning, folks. Welcome to a real old session from the Wise Asylum. Oh, we're freezing. Ooh. Oh dear heck. Anyway, we've had a good week. Lots going on. Ooh. COP going on. Interesting, that COP. It's like it undermined itself before it even started. And we'll look at that. But it's actually been declared at the meeting. So it's, what is it? Just another meet so they can throw more crap down on the old minions? I think so, because the back end of it is doing pretty much opposite what it is they're going to tell everybody they have to do. So, interesting. But lots and lots of trillions have been promised by certain governments to throw down this wind and rain change. So, it's, nothing good's going to come out of it, let's be honest. For us, it's all going to keep going on and on. But yeah, interesting. Ireland's looking very sinister to me, because they've put this event on, and to one effect, it's actually quite a bit of data out there to suggest that it's another one of the old false flags. To what degree is fake about it, I don't know, but there's suggestions of that. So there's no smoke without fire, but I've not found anything else to support that. But let's look at what they're doing in the background. They are attacking the Irish against speaking about the immigrants, specifically Islam, while at the same time demanding that they pull more and more of these immigrants into the state system. Now that's worrying. That's very, very worrying, and people need to pay attention, because that's a blueprint that they're starting to set go there. You've got plenty of the immigrants there who are contracted, remember, to UN, but also to the government for 2 years, for whatever it is they're required to do. Now, setting off these guys, as appears to have happened in Ireland, it's not absolutely confirmed, but the actual people that came out first that were angry weren't actually the people that were actually starting to wreck the place. That were another group that just turned up out of nowhere and just started wrecking it. Now that seems to be the focus, that side of the, well, why would you wreck your own country? You wouldn't, would you? But a lot of the play that's come from this now is being set against with that exact event, whereas, it's nothing to do with what is supposedly happened regarding a stabbing. It's all about the Irish themselves. So you can clearly see there's the game there. There's a script playing out, and I don't know, I'm hopeful people are seeing it, but I suppose if you're in TV land still up to that, you might not be seeing it. But that's exactly what they're doing. They're flipping it. It's calling the victim perpetrator, rushing in a load of nonsense, blocking anybody from saying anything about it, which is all this hate crime nonsense. Yeah, it's a serious gig that they're playing out here, because you can. This is a blueprint. Remember also, Ireland's in Europe, so whatever's going on in Ireland is a direct result of its relationship with Europe, and people still want to go back there. Have we not got it bad enough here? The idea that all this financial war that's come about is because of Brexit is nonsense. It never got implemented. We went through the fact that Boris was prevented from proroguing it by the Supreme Court. It wasn't implemented. He wanted to prorogue Parliament, which means close it down, put everything back together again without the EU nonsense, and then reopen Parliament on that basis. That's what the prorogue was about. And the Supreme Court said he couldn't do it. It was unlawful, they said. I think they mean illegal, but certainly not unlawful. Everything that went on thereafter was unlawful, but of course, lawful wasn't the jurisdiction playing out in those decisions. So away with it they go again, and get away with it. But you've got to consider that what's going on in Ireland, and keep your eyes on it, because it's only just begun, but you can see what they're doing quite clearly if you're looking. That's a blueprint, and that would be a blueprint for European nations. Now, we've never left Europe. The ECR is still in place, in force. Now, they say that that's the reason why we can't get rid of these immigrants, but that's total nonsense. Let's be quite frank about it. It's nonsense. You know, if you want to start throwing bills around, it's Bill of Rights here. But of course, they want to keep that out of the mix, so you can't have your English flags anywhere, but you can put the Union Jack up. Unless, of course, we have some rebels. Rishton here, over here in Lancashire, is very rebellious and very, very up for the old English flag, and it still flies atop the church. I like that. It's nice to go into a town and see that big flag flying high. So kudos to Rishton in Lancashire for that. But in other places, and more or less as it stands, you're not really allowed to show that flag anywhere because they don't want it out. We don't want it out and about because it represents a nation, it represents a realm of laws, none of which that have been upheld by this bunch of Johnny Come Latelys up there at the top and down there at Chalker, Westminster. It's just not going on, is it? It's infantile, playpen nonsense, and you have to suck on it. Again, we've said, people, that's where the rights are at in this nation. We need to come together. It's the only thing those natives have now. Or you're going to take on this pick a side malarkey. You know, but you can fast see now that what they're going to do is shove these immigrants in the state. Because remember, the corporate. It's all corporate that's running this stuff now. They need people less native to implement stuff that they've got planned to come down firmly, as has been declared by the Klaus. He's warning people, we must do this, what we have to do, without actually telling them what it is. Well, I think we're getting the picture now. We're getting to see the game. So we need to think about that, as there's all the strategy for the natives is to reinvigorate England, its laws, and just show this charade of pretend monarchy or fiefdom that they've took upon themselves and had everybody believe is a complete nonsense, and it's just not beneficial, is it? It's not beneficial to any of us, upon which all these systems based as principles. Where the principles, all these trusts have been created around that fact. Are we benefiting? No. Because of the magic they play when you come through any door or whatever and identify yourself as the Sesquivy Trust. In their world, it's honourable. It's all honourable in their game, because they've made up their rules. You don't know those rules, so to you it's, oh my god, it's contrary to what you believe, the map. That's reality though. They have a different map. They all agree. It's a covenant. They're not allowed to talk about it, or tell you about it, in any way, shape or form. Which is why you don't want to be going to these offices for any kind of legal problems, because they're all in cahoots. They're all in it together. And you're not going to get heard even, let's be frank. People is where the rights is. We looked at the sub-infeudation. Now, whether that's correct or not, we don't know. I haven't found any of these things, but of course, as he was presenting, they are hidden purposefully, because it outs the fraud, and it outs the fact that they've gone against acts still in force, but unseen to the legal eye. So somebody's been speaking at Quora Waronto this week. Asked me if I'd actually do a bit of a meet with him, but I'm so involved in myself at the minute. I forgot. Anyway, so I went out. But the Waronto, again, that's Rob B's department. I don't know whether Rob B's out there or not. Anybody knows him that watches this suggests he may want to come out with this Waronto a little bit more and explain it again. Because that act, I'm sure, hidden may be from the legal, but if you're going to take it to the masters, I'm sure they have a copy. I'm quite sure they have a copy. And the evidence of the fact would be the title of the act, I would say, if that can be sort of found. Without having no knowledge of what's inside it, of course, because we're not meant to. But, you know, the title, the fact, is it so? If it is, surely they would be dishonourable if they were operating according to law, which Jaws would uphold. Not sure which law we're talking about. It's probably talking about whatever this cult is that, in my opinion, is running this charade over here, and that would be the Church of England, which means church away from. So, there's something funny going on there, and I think we might miss it. But again, that takes us back to Blenheim Palace. Now we've briefed it. I've only briefed it because we've only just started to look at it. But I'm going to go just some interesting stuff. If you've followed these lives for whatever, maybe a couple of years, there's always a narrative overriding that sometimes I'll pull out. And it's historical. It's always a journey back through history to say, well, did that happen? Was it potentially this kind of shindig that went on? And we've gone through that. So I'm basically just presenting to you my sort of inner thoughts and feelings as I've studied all this history. And of the secret societies especially, because that's where you see the game, that's where the power is. But yeah, seeing through the nonsense. And of course, I did actually declare myself, to myself, of course, that I thought I was quite a decent historian. Until I come across that flamenco geezer. I forgot his full name, but a revisionist in the extreme, in that he was saying, basically what he showed me, well, hang on a minute, you need to have a look at this again, because he presented that they might not have just changed chronology in hundreds of years, but thousands of years. But more importantly, what sort of remained with me with the fact that he pointed out that what might have been going on in a lot of cases is this idea that they've shifted histories, so from, let's say, an history from Byzantium, and put it onto Rome, Europe. So now that would be confusing, would it not? Yeah, totally confusing. But it's not without sensibility as to why they would do that, and we'll have a little look at that in a minute. But see, I've always had a problem with this massive landmass from the back end of Russia, back end of Himalayas, China, right up to the Siberian coast. We're told and meant to say and believe that it's empty, it's barren, there's nothing going on, there's nothing ever been going on. But then all of a sudden out pops Tartaria. Now I looked at this, I think about 2016 or 15, give it a good study, and I could pretty much see that, at least looking at Flamenco's work, his angle, that he were playing into this as a forerunner, perhaps even, if he didn't want to claim it as his own, as Tartaria being this supreme ancient, well, not necessarily ancient, but this civilization that we can see that in the last, 600-700 years, one particular force has been running around demolishing. And they've been demolishing architecture that were way beyond anything that we put together today. So, they talk about evolution. If you look at it from that angle, we've been going through a devolution and then removed from our histories so that we don't recognise where we come from. And that this that we've had since colonisation and such, or crusade, let's say, as the gig it's always been. Well, I don't take that. History tells me that's not the case, without a shadow of a doubt, and I've always been seeking to try and find answers to that. And for me, it always comes back to that big mass of land between the back end of Russia and China. Because when you get into the Chinese histories, which I studied quite a lot, I studied their almanac as well, so you get a real core premise of where the foundation lies, their gods and goddesses, their astrology, etc. Very interesting read. If anybody's interested in studying the Oriental race, you will see it by studying their old almanac. But then I studied the Opium Wars, especially from perspective of biographies from captains or just sailors who were up the Yangtze, up these rivers. That's where you get to see the fact that while we were all bedazzled with the Bolshevik revolution from this side of Russia, there were a lot going on from the other side of Russia to China, and they were importing Bolshevism by the ton, and that's what started to change China when that started to raise and become powerful. And you can see that there were a lot going on behind that Bolshevik gig. Then we had the Second World War, then the Iron Curtain. So we never got to see beyond Russia. It was always a boundary for our media to concern themselves with, even our historians and academia, and it was everything going on this side of the Iron Curtain. And it's always confounded me that there's much more going on over that side, because the Chinese had a serious enemy called the Mongols. They had a serious enemy, that side of China. So there were powers there going on for quite a while. Now, when I look into Tartaria, so you're looking at the Siberian coastline and then maybe a few hundred miles in, and it's clear, if you look at some of them satellite images or Google, there's been some massive conflagration there at some time in history. You could say, okay, so it's asteroids. No, I don't think they were asteroids. You would expect them to, what you'd be seeing after a nuclear conflagration. So that made me start to think, well, perhaps India, as we've been told, was far bigger and incorporate the histories of India, let's say, the Bhagavad Gita and all these other Vedas, etc. They're actually describing a time when those people were up in that area, and perhaps the conflagration came. Maybe that's where the Atlantean wars came in. I don't know, because for me, Atlantis has always been where we class as the North Pole. Anyway. But it just made me think there's a lot more going on, and the reason why they've had it as desolate. And of course, how could it be so desolate when we had the rise of the Genghis? You know what I mean? This guy was a killing machine. He was a monster, by all accounts. I mean, he was war and full stop. So the warring, the takeover, and all that malarkey were proper going on in that area through Genghis. And then you've got Europe was sort of fighting amongst itself, but it weren't warring to the degree it was in Roman times, not in the least until the Prussians started to re-emerge. And then it all went war mad and colonisation. Which people forget, Portugal was the first coloniser to Spain, Dutch, French, English. So you can trace a line coming up that way as well, these old Silk Roads, these old merchant lanes that they once had, and I think they want back. They want it back that way because it gave the eastern side control as opposed to the western side control, which is why they're attacking the west as they are. But Stalin, we went through a video on that where he created an homeland for the Jews in that big area that we're not allowed to speak about, or not necessarily not allowed to speak about, but there's just we to believe there's nothing worth speaking about, So you've got Kazakhstan, you've got Azerbaijan, all these places, that area, Armenia, Georgia, all these places that we're now finding are flooding or blighted. So it's interesting when you start to, and you've looked at the bloodlines, you've looked at the connections between Byzantium, the Venetians. Venetians are very important in all this because they were actually the force that allowed the Caliphate to become Byzantium. They were the ones that set up, but then set up not necessarily at elite level because the Comnene were involved, and it's from the Comnene that it would look, and others, that these intermarriages with these Genghis Mongol armies may well have entered Europe and become Venice. Venice became the stronghold on the merchant side because, of course, it's all coming from the Silk Road side. And then from there, we can actually take a little look at some of these bloodlines that are mixed with that. Now, the Angevins are one of those. And they're the ones 1066, they came over here and hoity-toited and slaughtered the North. It's like the North still hasn't forgiven you for that. I can tell you. It's like you can just feel it. So, Angevins, who the hell were they? But then you've got to mix Angevins and you've got the Plantagenets, which is still a branch, but more of the Norman side. So then you've got Henry II. You've got Eleanor of Aquitaine. Now I studied them for time, because they were absolutely demented, especially Eleanor. The woman was absolutely batshit crazy, absolutely demented. Now it makes a bit of sense when you start getting into who these people were, what back connections they've got. Now I picked up something only today, or it might have been yesterday, and I just thought, bloody hell, that's pretty. Boom, there. It shows you that there is this connection, because you've got to remember all the prophecies from the West about what's coming, this Antichrist or whatever you want to call it. It's coming from the East, not Arabs. Arabs are not East, they're South. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's not Arabs as a race, but what were created in Byzantium in relation to how they changed Islam to their own creed, as opposed to what were created over there on the Arabian Peninsula. Again, has always made sense to me that there were shenanigans going on at that point when this bunch that had come into Byzantium, because Venice had set up the Byzantiums, not necessarily the elites though, of course, they were probably all in on it, and it was just a shift ever westward, as it were, in order that this bloodline can take everything over. But then, I forgot what I was going to say. Anyway, well, I forgot, because we'll get into it in a minute, because these images are a bit more, who's in, who's on, how are you doing? Paul says good evening to you, Paul. Slipknot says right, Sean, right, everyone, right, Trev. Mew says good morning, afternoon, evening, one, and hello, Sean, good evening. Michael Jr. says evening, Sean, evening, all the wise style, I'm back for another exciting night. Well, I hope so. June says good evening, Sean, and chat, good evening, June. Mew says 2 beheadings, my Irish friend informed me 2 doing life in prison now in the weeks leading to the stabbings. 2 beheadings? No, I've not seen anything about that. It's this gig itself. It's really not looking good. It's not. I don't want to say any more than that yet, because I can't find anything else to support what this one particular guy is saying. So we'll just, the jury's out as yet. But you look at what they're doing on the back of it. Yeah, that's where the game is. It's what are they doing on the back of that? Keep everybody focused to that. Pull out your hero, McGregor. Try and get that anger up. Keep it going. Channel it while you're not looking at what they're doing here. Now, there are some people, there's some good eggs in Ireland that are seeing it and they're expressing it. But what these politicians in Ireland are saying, it's beyond treason. It's in your face. Screw you. It's quite worrying. So the Irish have to really think about how they're going to deal with this. Because violence won't be the way. You can see how they're going to turn that right on you with this hate stuff, because it's specifically don't hate the Muslims, because it's the Muslims they're using to take over and put in the state, so that what they want implementing, those in them positions will be happy to do it, because they're running on this script. Let's say it white on it. Yeah. It's a shit script. I don't like it. You know, it's crap. It's rubbish. You need to chill out and grow, in my opinion. But Ireland's in a bit of trouble at the minute. So I don't know about the 2 beheadings. PY Music says, good evening. Good evening to you, Paul. L says, evening, Sean. Missed the live a few weeks in a row. So more a day. Later, best wishes to you and your family. Pray for your son-in-law. Well, thank you, sir. June says, England for the English. Well, it's just that England is a nation, and that's where all our rights are enshrined within. Not UK, which is a corporation, not Great Britain, which is basically an occupation. And UK, you could say, is the platform by which the occupation milks the living daylights out of the citizen. Because I did a series of videos on occupation a couple of years ago, and there's certain rules of occupation. They're not allowed to stop you from achieving your natural rights. Obviously, people have forgot how to do it, which is why I'm saying we need to come back together as people, bring it back to people, because that's where the rights are enshrined in law. Not in the equity side, of course, but that's where they are. What were I talking about? Right, so it's just bringing back that nation, because whether we like it or not, forget about race, whether you're Irish, Scottish, Welsh, the freedoms that the world's enjoyed, or the West at least, come from England. Nothing else. Not Scotland. No, not London. From England. And that's what we need to recoup back. That's what America needs to do. It's what Australia needs to do. It's what Canada needs to do. India, all the Commonwealth nations, you have access to this system. So it's that needs to be rebirthed. So it's not about race, English race. It's about there's the rules. That's the game. You know, because these people that run around saying Muslim, they're not Muslims. They're not Muslims. They're not obeying the laws of the nation. They're indentured servants or whatever in contract to the empire. You know, the West, what we've actually done is we've seen through our religion has gone up its arse. So we've just said, no, we don't want that in our world. It's not like we've all become evil. We've just said, no, that's gone up its arse. We're not interested in that. We have absolutely no interest in empire, like our grandparents did and baby boomers. We've no interest in it. No interest in it whatsoever. We can see that when you look in history that we, the people, didn't actually benefit from the empire. They were put in the mines, in the pits, and everything else that went with it. That's not beneficial. It's benefiting the empire. So we're not the empire anymore. The people of England don't really represent the empire, but the immigrants do. Even though they think they're fighting the empire, no, they're part of it. It's the empire that's pulled them here. The only means they've ever had to move out of the countries is because of the empire, the East India companies. That's who's invited you, and you're on a contract. You're not obeying the laws of the nation. So, according to the Quran, you're not a Muslim. That's not what I'm saying. That's what the Quran says. So these people that are talking nonsense on the fringe and trying to big up this civil unrest, don't be thinking, no, they're poor Muslims. They're not. They're not Muslims at all. Their book calls them kafir. That's what it calls them. And explains exactly what must be done. But of course it's talking to Muslims, not talking to anybody else. But what's going on in Ireland is very worrying. The Imperial says it's all done by design. Absolutely. It reminds me of the Matrix. You know, the architect says we've been doing it for a long time and we're very good at it. That's exactly what they are. They've been doing it all over the world, while everybody in the West has pumped it into Live Aid, give it to Barnardo's, give it to all these super massive charitable operations, within which is the trafficking, the child trafficking, the paedophilia, the organ trafficking, the forced med stuff. All that comes in them big, and you know, armchair numpties. Oh, I'll just send them £10. I've done my bit. Well, you funded something that you'd be horrified to, especially Live Aid. Bob Geldof were told that if he was to send the money where it was going, it would fund a junta, a madman. He did it anyway because that was the plan all along. That's why he's stuck to this, the old money, because he's serving it well. He served it very, very well. And so anybody attached to Live Aid will be cursed. You'll be carrying some serious lurgy way of taking part in that kind of stuff. You've really got to pay attention to what you're doing. Paul says, good evening Paul. Cos, 1973, pink dog poo. Is that pink dog poo? It looks a bit like pink dog poo to me. House of C says, oi oi, oi oi. Treen says, hiya Sean, hiya Treen, how are you doing? Excuse me. Missed a couple of Sunday lives, a wee bit run down. Yeah, you have to detach. You know, you have to detach from it. I mean, I've watched a few things in this last couple of weeks that have really, well, I detached from it, you know. Just witness, don't let it suck you in, or you'll be stuck on a timeline before you know where you are. And we've talked about that. That's not good. So, it's just a reminder that we went through this. This was like just looking at certain prophecies that relate to Merlin, some Egyptian. But Mother Shipton more important because she's from Yorkshire, or was, and she pretty much had it in the bag. And that's She says the whole aim of what's going on now is that the yellow race is trying to divide the world in two. And people think, oh, right, well, that's the Chinese then. Well, no. It's my conjecture that it's actually whatever has been being birthed in the cauldron called Mordor, we might call it, without anybody paying attention. And that would be that massive landmass. They call Siberia and all that area, that they're trying to pick up as the place that was the supreme civilization that got destroyed. No, that's it, our destruction of that is coming from there, would be my opinion. And Stalin entered Germany, Berlin, with a Mongol army. Remember that. We don't get to see what's going on. Now, she's just... I just want to find that passage. Where are we? I'll start it. And before the race... Sorry, into... No. Hang on a minute. No, oh, wait a minute. Here it is. It says, the signs will be there for all to read when man shall do most heinous deed. Man will ruin kinder lives by taking them as to the wives. So that's all your divorce and your wife swapping and all that malarkey, changing all lines. A murder foul and brutal deed when man will only think of greed. A man shall walk as if sheep, he does not look, he may not peep. That's where people are today, they're not looking. They don't even peep. And iron men the toll shall do, an iron cart and carriage too. The king shall false promise make, well, we're definitely in that world, and talk just for talking's sake, and nations plan horrific war, the like has never seen before. So we've had two of them, but you know, this third one, by all accounts, is supposed to be the worst. Is that the one she's speaking of? The taxes rise and lively down, and nations wear perpetual frown. Yet greater sign there be to see, as man nears the latter century. 3 sleeping mountains gather breath, and spew out mud and ice and death, and earthquakes swallow town, and lands as yet to me unknown. So that's not here. So it's obviously she's not talking about lands she's aware of, so that's not Europe. And Christian one fights Christian two, and nations sigh yet nothing do, and yellow men great power gain from mighty Burr with whom they've lain. Okay, so is the Burr Russia? Is the Burr in a truth? I know we call it the Burr today. Has it always been the Great Burr, or was that further east? Because that could be trickery. I might need to check that out. These mighty tyrants will fail to do. They fail to split the world in two. But from their acts of danger bred an auger, leaving many dead. So that's just a reminder that yellow race and everybody's been, just assume China, don't you? Well, I'd say China's been taken from the same spot, that side, and the west has been taken the same, the other side. So the demarcation line will be at the back end of Russia, and we just have had no idea of what's really going on, how it actually really works there. But it is interesting when you think of it like this, because it looks like the Chinese, but that's just the corporation, isn't it? They set up the corporation there, and that's the blueprint for the entire world. So I think this is like what we're actually trying to figure out and work out how this. And so who are the Khazars then? You know, who are they? You know, is that a deflection? Even though since Israel's inception we can see that pretty much there is a mindset in there, usually the governing, that actually thinks in a manner that we would ascribe to the sort of Genghis Khan attitude to war, which we can see as they've kicked it off again. There's no let up, it's back there and that's it. So that is a mindset. It's definitely a mindset that comes out of a Genghis land. So I don't know. Is it possible they got a stronghold there? But Venice is definitely an interesting place in the sense an elite side, and you've got Comnene involved. So we'll just have a little look at if I can read them in time. So that's Mothership, and it might take a while before it goes because I had to set them quite long so I could read them, because I'm always reading them and running out. But you can always go back and check them out if this subject matter interests you. So just wait for it to change for you. So that's old Mother Shipton, by the way. Some White Kings didn't like him. They could see all the tricks. So why is that not changing? That seems like... Oh, so anyway, and this is interesting because that's only half the landmass, because they've put a line across it, a third down, and yet all that yellow above it, right up to Siberian coast, was part of the landmass that I'm speaking about. But they just haven't boarded China off. So it's like they're trying to blag us again to make us think that that's who they are. But you know, they've been such an enemy to China of the Mongols, even longer than they have the West. So that's the empire that Genghis got up. It says the Mongols were not the only ones the Byzantines were undertaking marriage with. The Lascarids and Paleologi married off as many family members as they could to their neighbours as possible. This chart here shows just a few of them from 1204 to 1453, showing chiefly Aparadian, Chigisid and Ottoman connections. This is not all marriage connections, but some were. I was interested in seeing how their relationships actually fit together. One of the interesting ones I learned was that Michael IX, 1294-1320, was of partial Cuman ancestry. His mother Anna was a child of Istvan V, King of Hungary, 1270-1272, and Elizabeth the Cuman, and the sister of... So this is the family tree that takes you down to Mehmet II and Constantine, and it's the mixing of the Comnines and the Hungarians, and then with the Khans. So there's a mix. And Comnene is such a potent family and an old family, and was ruling Byzantium. You have to take note. So Genghis Khan, Comnenes, and the Hungarians were mixing a bloodline. So you get John the VIII, John the VII, Andronikos the IV. Now this one here is another line, set of lines. You can't really see it, can you? It's bigger on to the one. I don't know why it's done that. So my apologies, chaps. And that again brings you down some other lines showing the intermarriage, and then you can start to see them looking a little bit eastern. Yeah, and this of course is Byzantium. This is Venice, kind of thing. Now I've been collecting quite a lot of images of these people. I have to put their names on the image so that you can actually see who they are. So I've that to do first. Otherwise I would have put them up tonight. But it's interesting. We only focus to this side of Europe when really it's all been going on over there. Now this is another one. Theodore and Mistress mixing in again here. And there's 6 Mongol Byzantine marriages here on record. And where we are, I don't think this is the one that takes us direct to the Angevins, but there's another line here that then takes us to the Angevins, which I thought was a good start because they've been important on these islands, as they have in France. So, yeah, I don't know. I know Eleanor of Aquitaine were definitely full on. But also another line here brings you through to Sicily as well. And the Sicilian Mafia have always been just that slightly bit different, haven't they? Well, this is probably why. They've got this mixing. So you've got Christian Hungary mixed in with the Comnene, who have always claimed to be of the Old Testament, mixing with Genghis and his clan, or his future progeny. and forming these other lines. And of course, we've looked at De Balcony, haven't we? Again, big on Ark, GBN News backing that. It says other genealogies give his wife Marija, daughter of Tocta, died 1312, Khan of the Golden Horde, and wife Maria Paleologina, born 1297, bastard daughter of Andronikos II, Paleologos, emperor of Byzantium. So they've been mixing it up for sure. And I just think, you get into this kind of stuff, and the Khazarians, in a lot of sense, could be a bit of a diversion. Because we know, don't we, that Catherine the Great, under her time, they actually invaded Khazaria and pretty much broke it up and filled the pogroms with a lot of slaves, as it were. In 1297, Khan Tocta married Maria Paleogina, the illegitimate daughter of Byzantine Emperor Andronicus II, blah, blah, blah. Their daughter, Marija, later married Nerimantus, the Grand Duke of Lithuania. So can you see how it looks like they've got this, they get themselves into Slavic nations. It's and tied to Byzantium, which the Slavic nations have always still seen their imperial head being Byzantium. And again, there you can see that guy looks Oriental, Michael VIII, Paleologos, Emperor of the Romans, 1259, 1282. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily something new, it's just a story that's been obfuscated, in my opinion. And we've missed the whole thing. Because if this gig comes from the East, and I never found anything in Chinese ancient history where they actually invaded anywhere outside. They were just all fighting amongst each other. You know what I mean? So, but this bunch, Theodore I Laxcaris, Emperor of the Romans, 1205, 1221. Yeah, it's just, but it does fit with my overriding narrative that there's more been going on in that area. It's like, is that Mordor? That, everybody just knows it's woken up, but before that everybody forgot, kind of thing. Now, Nostradamus made it clear that this influx of this eastern horde will come through Turkey. And has that not been the case, in truth? And you've got Andronicus II, Paleologos, Emperor of the Romans, 1282, 1328. And then Andronicus III, Paleologolos, Emperor of the Romans, 1328 to 1341. Now, there's a lot going on here. Edward I has just done his gig. The Angevins have done the gig with Henry II and Eleanor. Completely and utterly annihilated everything, basically. Said they dug up Arthur and Guinevere and that the English should shut up because they weren't coming back. Because we won't let you see it, though. You weren't allowed to look. They'll never go back to Shipman. But it's just, to finish that, it says, there was also a few Ottoman-Byzantine marriages, an aspect of the Ottoman-Byzantine relationship that's usually overlooked in popular narrative, which tend to prefer just skipping to 1453. So they just flick to 1453 and forget the rest. So that's basically what we can see coming through there. So I just thought I'd present that because it just does add more support to the idea we might be looking at everything a bit wrong, but by design, of course. So, the rituals, it continues. Angry Prince William, more concerned about his own image than royal work, and that was in the Express. I think we put that up last week. But this seems to be coming from this strange-looking author from over there in the United States. Queen Elizabeth Land. This is a part of Antarctica, but they've done more there. Good morning, Prince Harry and Meghan have been urged to speak up in support of the King in the racism row, plus the Labour plans GP hubs for out-of-house visits. So, it's down to them two now, is it, for this coming on for Christmas. Bend the knee to the King. Harry and Meghan excluded from wedding of Archie's godfather, and that's the Duke of Westminster. Charles, I'll never give up on Harry. But King's heart is breaking over damaging royal race row. I think that's because it's him and Katie that have been accused of being a bit naughty. Meghan Markle never wanted names of royal races to be revealed as Scooby Row escalates, or Scorby Row. So she didn't want the royal races, she did use the term herself. King Charles stuck in the middle between Harry and Camilla after deep hurt. Okay, so now Charles is in the middle. Oh well. There's the ritual, just keeping up with that. Now this, the Duchy. We discussed it last week. This was a bit of an insight into it. It's the Duchy of Lancaster is unusual in the British Constitution because it brings together the monarchy and government. The Crown's income from the Duchy of Lancaster is administered as a separate income stream for King Charles III by the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. The Duchy of Lancaster is administered as a separate income stream for King Charles. Yeah, okay. This cabinet-level post, which is given to a politician as a favour or alongside other responsibilities, is currently held by former Tory party co-chairman Oliver Dowden MP for Hertsmere in Hertfordshire. Previous chancellors include Winston Churchill, appointed in 1915. Oliver Dowden, the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, administrates the estates and rents of the Duchy of Lancaster. So if he's managing the estates, does that include these money they've nicked off all dead people, as they said? So, the plot thickens. Now, what's been going on? Here they are. No, these faces are coming back. Can you believe it? They're coming back. Campbell's been all over Twitter. I've badgered him quite a little bit. He just ignores me. Like they all do. They pretend I don't exist. Because they understand all publicity is good publicity. Starmer heaps praise on Thatcher as he woos Conservative voters. Well, Blair's back in, didn't he put himself up as I am a Tory Labour guy, and then sacked an important Labour maxim. It says forever chemical in English tap water samples are carcinogenic. The WHO rules. Of course, this is this week's news. Speaking to global leaders at COP28, there is a desire for Britain to return to the world stage of climate leadership. That is what Keir Starmer and Labour government will deliver, so we can protect the planet and cut bills for people at home. And there he is with Ed Miliband at COP. President Lula, official strong leadership on climate issues sets an example for us to follow, says Keir. In our meeting today, we agreed that making progress here in Dubai is vital if you are head onto the right path for COP30 in Brazil. And the UK is 85% white, most workplaces will mainly white. BBC Radio 5 presenter Nihal Atanayake has said an overwhelmingly white working environment is affecting his mental health. You were a mental retard, pal, for even thinking that's got something to do with having to see white people. And what's going on with British politics? They want you to see it as that, because they're all fronting the same. You know, that's what the game is. You know, it's a game. You've got to see it. You've really not got to let it catch you. Why has that come up again? I don't know. But anyway, have a look. You don't want to be drinking tap water. And what the hell's happened to her? Parental failure is my opinion. Something serious. That is one angry Flossie. Isn't it? Must have took lessons from Greta Thunberg. And world seemingly silent as China expands crackdown on Muslims and the mosques where they worship. See, I don't think Muslims are seeing this game properly. The world is watching. And Hamas official statement, we demand all the world's forces to end the occupation of our land and Al-Quds. We are ready to pay the price for freedom and will not accept anything less than our independence. We had information that the aggression would return. Both probably knew not one weapon of mass destruction. Young soldiers died, civilians and flea bags. So that's we'll look into our weekly politics there. Okay, cokey then. So I suppose there he is, COP28. The blue and the black, His Majesty in uppercase, King Charles III. What language is that then? Charles Saxe-Coburg-Gotha says dangers of climate change are no longer distant risks. He finished his speech at COP28 with a warning: the earth does not belong to us, we belong to the earth. Yet, he's nicking the fucking lot. Hypocrisy, King Charles on individual responsibility. It's worth mentioning the royal family has flown over 500,000 miles in the last 5 years in private jets and helicopters, enough to get to the moon and back, plus 3 loops of the equator. Sunak has been accused of climate hypocrisy and set an awful example after using separate jets for him and Lord Cameron to attend COP28 in Dubai. We want to know what you think, says The Independent. Outrageous, isn't it? If people go with it. Rishi Sunak insists the UK can stand tall at the COP28 conference as it remains a leader on tackling climate change, as he hit back at criticism from Lord Goldsmith. And that's the Telegraph. King Charles pay 5 trillion annually to prevent the catastrophe. 5 trillion? He's after nicking everything, this geezer, and his crew. But you to show. COP28 countries approve historic climate disaster fund on the first day of the summit. First day, that's agreed. Get the cash out. Come and say sign there. And all our taxes off. It's off, skip. Oh, look, big friends. Oh, the Blur, Maddie, and the old Cameroon. Look, they're best mates, these people. Best mates. I mean, does Cameron follow Blur and go to these rituals? I wonder. And just in case nobody's getting it, we rotate Star Trek. William Shatner makes impassioned climate change plea ahead of COP28 summit. We're all going to die. Very nice. That's quite good. And Germans have said, well, fuck that. So much for the green agenda. We're demolishing the wind farm and we're expanding our coalfield. Clever Germans. Just what needs to be done everywhere. I mean, that's how we powered our country. Nuclear is another. Fury as Anthony Albanese, this is Australia, signs up to a 2 trillion fund to pay poor countries affected by wind and rain and start helping Australian families instead of giving away their money, says, I don't know what paper that is. Hilda Heen, former unit president of the low-lying Marshall Islands, said reports that the UAE presidency plans to use the COP28 meeting to secure oil gas deals shattered the credibility of the talks in Dubai. And COP28 president says there is no science behind demands for phase out of fossil fuels. So there you have it. COP28. Moving on swiftly. Not really much going down apart from them handing over a shed load of our cash. What are we to make of that load of malarkey? I reckon. I thought it was going to be a bit more exciting. There were going to be big speeches, Antarctica this, and da-di-da-di-da. But no, apparently not. Somebody's got a cough. It's just dry with me. It's a dry cough. Because when I sit in car, I have a fag. I got a heater on, and it just dries my throat up a little bit. So I'm not ill, right? I've no cough that way. It's just dry from car. I've noted it. Does Genghis Khan fit in with that out of Mongolia? I mean, I did study him years ago, and I can't remember that much about him. Because all you get if you've gone normal way is Marco Polo. It just deflects from the... You know, for him to come all the way to Europe just with ease and then just stop. Deals were done, I would suggest. Disciple of the Messiah. Peace and grace with the Sean family and the same to you, sir. Thank you very kindly. Okay, so what we're next? So just have a little look at what I've thought worth coming out of the old Irish gig. Interest in the Irish mainstream media is silent on Azad Talukadar, the Limerick Fianna councillor. One would have imagined that the public representative making a statement at the council meeting that Dubliners should get public punishment, shot in the head, or beaten to death. And beaten to death. That's a councillor, a Muslim councillor, by the way. Minister for Justice Alan McKenzie has urged anyone who hears family members and neighbours claiming Ireland is turning into a police state to report them immediately to the Garda. And in the back of all this, and on the back of all this, Irish NGOs to be given policing powers. Now then, again, there'll be Muslim security. Can you see how they're going to play this out? And just to keep everybody quiet, they're basically saying, yes, you can be the Algerian man arrested on suspicion of being involved in terrorism can be deported, blah, blah, blah. Crisis actually says they were not allowed to cross the road to witness the Poronal bloodless stabbing massacre, but no problem for those in Code Orange who walked straight into the scene. And so there's a video in that as well, and I saw this right at the beginning as well, actually. I've sought any further info to support it, but I'm not actually finding anything outside of that guy himself. But look at that, she's a strange Flossie, that one. Anybody whose family members and neighbours claiming Ireland is turning into a police state, report them immediately to the Garda. What kind of fucking playpen talk is that? And that's dangerous. And remember, Ireland is under the EU. The EU. Do you want to go back into that shit? Full on. Because you need your consent, remember. Do not allow it. No matter what. Anyway. That's that. Now then. Let's have a little look at this. Because of course there's a... Old Uncle Henry's popped his clogs. Annie. Oh dear heck. So, Uncle Henry's popped his clogs. So, let's just start it off with this. The WEF and Schwab are just puppets. Contrary to what you perceive, Schwab neither founded nor strategically directs the WEF, some of whose members are far higher than him in the global pecking order. Founded by Otto von Habsburg, Kissinger was tasked in advance to mentor Schwab, destined as its puppet figurehead. Habsburgs were behind the Federal Pan-Europa in 1923, and the circle, the latter, far higher and more hidden than WEF in the hierarchy. And just going back to that Mongol stuff, again the Habsburg, they were the old Venetian party of the north. Yeah, and I would say you're tied to this, this breeding. So that it's been going on since, as I always say, the Crusades. We've just done 1,000 years of undermining whatever was before, which gave us all that superb architecture, not only here in Europe, but also over on America, that they've been demolishing, or did demolish 100 years ago, everywhere. San Francisco, major forts and towns inside, all the way across America. So that, again, suggests the history we've been fed is off the mark somewhat. It says WEF was originally known as the European Management Symposium and fully admits Klaus Schwab with two important mentors, Henry Kissinger, his former professor at Harvard, and Edward Heath, Symposium Chair. Now, Edward Heath was blackmailed, we know this, and he was to the point where it's alleged he would actually murder the offspring on his yacht. That brought in the Jersey care homes, amongst others. And this is why he pulled in the European gig in direct opposition to the laws of the land, plus also the Queen signed it off. Again, treason. Disgusting. So Edward Heath was the head of the symposium, put there specifically by Kissinger because he was being blackmailed. He didn't have a choice. Well, he did. He could have said, yeah, I'm terrible and bad, put me in prison, but they're all too shit scared for that, aren't they? What connects Habsburg to Bauer, which of course is Rothschild? That was its original name. And also Bauer is a very old, it goes way, way back. Way back, in fact. Right into the heart of old Rome. So what connects Habsburg to Bauer, Rothschild, and indeed the likes of Cecil, Saxe-Coburg, Astor, Huguenots, Rockefellers, ancient Roman aristocratic, Rockefellers, which is how it's spelled properly, and in brackets Rockefeller, Del Banco, which is Warburg, and Morgan, etc., and their senior agents such as Kissinger, Soros, Albright, Gates, etc. are the ancient Roman aristocratic lineage and the orders of Malta, Templar, Garter, Rosy Cross, Jesuits, whose ultimate authorities are Massimo, Medici, Pallavicini, Farnese, Bourbon, Two Sicilies, Lancelotti, Borgias, Adelshalte, Odescalte, Tolonia, etc. Sorry for the mispronunciation. The latter are the apex of the direct lineage from the ancient Roman dynasty, and the Massimo family name adorns the Fabian society, aka Quintus Fabius Maximus. The British Empire is simply a subset, exactly, and strong arm of the Roman Empire, and hence the visible apex of the globalist structure coincides indeed with the head of the British establishment in the form of the Privet, Rhodes, Milner and Fabian. US, China, Saudi, Russia, Israel, Iran are all examples of British colonies to this day, or imperial colonies, as I keep trying to point out. It's British is it's something other than what people, the original term, we can trace it back to 350 something BC, is the British Isles. That's what these islands, including Ireland, the Orkneys, all along, it were known collectively as British Isles, Albion, etc. But before that, yeah. Where are we? And he who is and remains emperor of the Romans is also emperor of the whole earth. George Trapezuntios, Greek philosopher, to Mehmet the Conqueror in 1466 after the conquest of Istanbul in 1453. Now Mehmet, we looked at, comes from this Comnene, Hungarian, Mongol line, this mix. Yeah, and this is 1453, that's what they all keep going to. They keep saying that there's more to be known before, which is correct. Which is why I keep saying things changed. Probably before the Crusades, in truth. So who were these Vikings? Again, interesting, because there's a lot of history to suggest that the actual Etruscans that were there previous to Rome being formed were actually Norse, the Norse people. So were they chased out and up, or did they just come to another agreement? Who knows? But there's a very interesting connection when you get it back in between the Scandinavians because of the old Silk Road, which takes you right down to Byzantium and then right on into China, Black Sea, all these. Troy area, if it was indeed over there in Anatolia. I mean, there is data to suggest it was here. But then there's a lot of that kind of thing goes on. I'm still not convinced that a lot of it's correct. I think some people are implanting what they'd like it to be because it fits in with the map, as opposed to what it perhaps was. I don't know. But they're interesting all the same. I like to keep my eyes on their work. The same ancient dynasty generated the entirety of European and much other royalty and aristocracy through the centuries, also controlled by Malta is Rothschilds. Rhodes Milner Group again itself far higher than the WEF, which is one of its many doctrinal and institutional great-grandchildren. Well, the Rhodes Milner Group morphed into the Round Table, and we've looked at that, the satellites of which is Bilderberg, Club of Rome, CFR, Council on Foreign Relations, which is CFR. What else is there? UN, Royal Institute on International Affairs, and the Trilateral Commission, which is John Kerry, or Forbes, as we had a little look at last week. 322 Skull and Bones. John Kerry is a very important player for these people. It's always worth seeing what he's talking, because whatever he's talking is the nonsense that's coming out from the bowels of the cauldron, I think, over there to the side of Russia. Along with the political Vatican, Crown Temple, DC Templars, Garter, Rhodes Cross, Jesuit Order, these form the principal apparatus by which the real heads who created and owned them run the show, and who aren't stupid enough to put themselves on display. In fact, chances are you wouldn't have even heard of them. The idea is people like us. The idea is people like us never find out who's in charge, as what the so-called elite fears most is the world masses uniting and getting hold of the heads of Snake. Schwab is only as good as his rectal schwab. Everything he says is scripted for him, just as Karl Marx, Lenin, Mussolini, Hitler were all scripted puppets, hence also on full display. Well, it's the same for Biden, it's the same for Trump, it's the same for Cameron, Sunak, Blair, whoever's in anywhere. Unless they're shouting contrary. But then again, you have to have another look at them because they do like to crack on with the old. I forgot. Anyway, we were talking about WF, but more importantly, the fact that Uncle Henry has popped his clogs. So, let's have a little look. A reminder. Henry Kissinger, one of the world's most notorious war criminals, has finally died. Let's take a look back and remember him for all the things he did. He was exceptionally naughty, especially Cambodia. That was the worst nightmare. And Rwanda. Terrible events. What did he do? And who did he do it for? I suppose is the question. I probably have got to put these on for quite a while because there might be some reading to do, so my apologies. So he's died, as old Henry. Oh dearie heck. Wait a minute. Might have to just... Now, why has that done that? You see, if these had a pause and a forward on them, it'd be superb. But you have to set it all up first, and I can't understand why there's just one in there. There should be tons. I can't forward. There's no way of forwarding it, which is pretty sad. If you could forward them, it won't be left stirring the same picture. Don't say it's gone crazy. No, they're all there. So I'll lower it to 20. See if that makes a difference. It just seems to be keeping on that one, doesn't it? I don't know why it's doing that. Well, it's not working. I don't know why that's not working. In all truth. It should be working fine. No, it looks like there's got a problem here. Oh dear. I don't know what to make of that, chaps. I really don't. That's set up and ready to go. So that's not playing out. But there's been lots of people coming out. Let's just remind ourselves, Henry Kissinger on mass attacks fallout Germany, letting too many foreigners on his command. Yeah, there we go. I'm not sure who they are actually. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, they all got the dictate through this guy. It's that Eagleburger, I can't remember. There he is. I wonder why that other one's not working. I know there. I mean, if you've seen some of the stuff Nixon wrote, you know, they're all playing and pissing in the same pot. Every single one of them. And as long as we don't see that, Murdoch, I want to know why that one's not working. And said to be Putin's handler, Primakov. And of course now, just before he pops, he says, "Oh, well, you shouldn't have done that." Yeah, he was the one that ordered it. So copy, let me just see if by getting rid of that, it changes anything. I can't understand why it's not doing it. That should be working. There should be tons of images in there. Oh, well, that's sad. Right, well, never mind. Never mind. We can do a bit of... What do you make of this? Because this is just, it's beyond bizarre. But, I mean, if you're a Catholic, what does this tell you? You know, what is it telling you? It's just... You're not kissing the ring! You're not kissing the ring! What's that all about? What is that? These guys just actors. Just mocking. That's a bit odd, isn't it? Well, a poor... It's not how it used to work. I remember at 70s when there were going to be a new pope, and it was like the world groundbreaking event. And that's just like... It's a piss take, isn't it? What are we supposed to think of that? Who is it, or is it... What? Who is it, or is a what? Well, I'm wondering if they're not all just actors, and they're just there to demolish, look stupid. The world is not trusting. You know, if it's about it, this is the game we should be looking at, really. But more importantly, keep your eye on what's going on in Ireland, because that's worrying. And now then, let's have a look at what he's saying. Let's listen to his words and see if we can move through the wizardry and see.
Is addressing the opening of the COP28 summit. Let's take a listen.
Critical turning point towards genuine transformational action at a time when already, as scientists have been warning for so long, we are seeing alarming tipping points being reached.
See, they're getting ready to shift it up a gear.
I've spent a large proportion of my life trying to warn of the existential threats facing us over global warming.
Facing us. He's talking now. This is a thing with wizardry when you're listening to these people. When he says us, he's talking about his covenant, those in the covenant, not you. You think is meaning. When you start to listen to them like this and break it up, you can see that they're not actually telling lies. They're in honour. But only because they're saying a script, they're talking to their people, and you understand it however you understand it.
Over climate change and biodiversity loss. But I was not alone. For instance, Sheikh Mohammed's dear father, Sheikh Zayed, was advocating for clean energy at a time even before the United Arab Emirates as such came into being. All these decades later, and despite all the attention, there is 30% more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere now than there was back then.
There is no evidence for that. Is it 0.01 at 4%? At 4? What? God, no, that's a lie. That he is told a lie there.
And almost 40% more meat.
But then he hasn't, because he's referenced the scientists. Yeah? So he's referencing them. Yeah? So he put the scientists in first, then here's where it's coming from. So he's It's not so much his lie, he's reading from what he's been told. Can you see? This is how their mind thinks. So right or wrong, forget it. If you want to this is how they play.
Some important progress has been made, but it worries me greatly that we remain so dreadfully far off track, as the global stocktake report demonstrates so graphically.
Stocktake. Right, now code on that. Okay? Because remember, they treat you as animals. They've took a stocktake after the first horse and they're not happy. It's not worked properly. For everything it has done, it has not brought to them what they were after. That's what he's saying there. Stock, okay? You've really got to see these people.
The dangers are no longer distant risks. I have seen across the Commonwealth and beyond countless communities which are unable to withstand repeated shocks, whose lives and livelihoods are laid waste by climate change.
Nothing to do with the last 3 years then. You see, when they talk like this, it makes you wonder, is that they have an understanding of what climate means? Are they talking about their own personal space? You with me? For him to be able to say that, because you know it's all about honour for them. Not how we see it and by our terms, by the how are we fixing in agreement with the covenant? Are we still playing within it? Yeah? You can see his face changes to... He's communicating to them. That phrase is to be taken on. You can see that in his face.
Surely real action is required to stem the growing toll of its most vulnerable victims. Repeated cyclones batter vulnerable island nations like Vanuatu and Dominica. India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan have been experiencing unprecedented floods, and East Africa is suffering a decades-long drought. This past summer, in common with Spain, Greece, the United States, and many other countries, Canada experienced its most severe wildfire season on record, with 18.5 million hectares of land burned, causing terrible loss of life and property, and of course, releasing enormous amounts of greenhouse gases that contribute to dangerous feedback loops to which climate scientists have been alerting us for decades.
So now, look what's just happened. All this land is no good, I'm going to nick it. Yeah? You see, the Witch King idea is he's putting himself up as this Hercules of nature. Yeah, the green man. This is what he's doing. This is why he's the green horse. This gig. Because it's not the pale horse. When you get to the Greek, it's green. Chloros. So I think he's going to nick this land now. Oh, we need to protect it. So they're all out there now in the little toboggans. You can't come on here anymore. Well, looking after it. Yeah. Animals usually get away. And a fire sometimes can do a lot of good. But then who set these fires off? Who's manipulating with geoengineering? Well, we know they are. You see, it's an half science in that for them to blag, because if they're doing drought over here, then there's more rain over there. So when they're saying climate change to the hot, they can only blag that side of it for that year. The rest of the other side of it has been piss wet through and freezing. So, you know, it's not an easy balance for them to play with that script, keeping it going. But if you can look at it like that, first you've got to acknowledge geoengineering, its ability to manipulate, not necessarily control, because it can shift it over here, but the downside is the other side gets it. Yeah? And so they can only convince that one area that year, oh, look, it's red hot. You're all going to die, it's burn off. But to the other side, they're going, you dipstick, you know. So You got to look at it that way as well. But of course, you've got to understand a bit about the old geoengineering.
As I've tried to say on many occasions, unless we rapidly repair and restore nature's unique economy based on harmony and balance, which is our ultimate sustainer,
So I have to nick it.
our own economy and survivability will be imperiled.
It's talking about, so basically from that, if they don't take full control of nature and everything that she produces, they, not you, are in trouble.
Records are now being broken so often that we are perhaps becoming immune to what they are really telling us. When we see the news that this last Northern Hemisphere summer, for instance, was the warmest global average temperature on record, we need to pause to process what this actually means.
Well, that's a fib because it pissed down. We got June and that were it. And it's not stopped since.
We are taking the natural world outside balanced norms and limits and into dangerous, uncharted territory. We are carrying out a vast, frightening experiment of changing every ecological condition all at once.
Well, that last experiment didn't go out well, did it? I'm not trusting on this new one.
At a pace that far outstrips nature's ability to cope. As we work towards a zero-carbon future, we must work equally towards being nature positive.
Nature positive.
With what we are witnessing, our choice now is a starker and darker one. How dangerous are we actually prepared to make our world? Dealing with this is a job for us all. Change will come by working together and making it easier to embrace decisions that will sustain our world.
Ooh. What do you think of that? Oh, you couldn't see that, could you? Oh my God. You couldn't see it, could you? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh. Wow, what did I do wrong there? Oh, really, really sorry about that, chaps. I thought I had it back for you. I don't know why that changed back. Not good. What else have we got? So we've got a bit of this for you guys to just keep your eyes on, because just following this island thing, I think it's really important. A, that the Irish get it, but more importantly, that we see that this is something that they're going to want to implement.
As intellectual spear carriers who build these social movements from above. It's a process known as astroturfing. Astroturfing is when you lead the world to believe what is happening is grassroots and is organic, but it is actually a reflection of the agency of the powerful. We look, for instance, at an organization known as Middle East Forum, founded by Andrew Hayes. Now the director of this think tank is Greg Roman, a former employee of the Israeli Foreign Ministry and the Israeli Defense Ministry. They received between 2010 and 2011 around $4 million from Donors Capital, a fund which is largely used to fund money for the Koch brothers, the billionaire oil barons of the United States. Now the Middle East Forum funded Gert Wilders. They also funded Tommy Robinson. The Free Tommy campaign was funded by the Middle East Forum. They paid his legal fees. And in fact, on top of that, Lucy Brown, a former employee of Tommy Robinson, came forward and said that he was receiving £10,000 per month from Robert Shillman. Who was Robert Shillman? He was formerly on the board of directors for the Friends of the Israel Defense Forces. Tommy Robinson has gone to the West Bank, the occupied West Bank, wore an IDF t-shirt and posed with a gun on top of an Israeli tank. He has even said, in the situation of war, he would fight for Israel.
Yeah, they represent something, these people, and 10 grand a month he's getting. He didn't tell you that, did he? He keeps that quiet. Now, there's a few stupid things here that's just... I don't know what to make of them, to be honest. I mean, I hope it's just fringe. But you never know, do you? So, it's a bit pot luck, actually, because I can't remember what... I don't know.
But wait, what does that mean?
It means that I want to see a world free of discrimination and hatred against Muslims.
It means that I want to show the positive contributions that Muslims make to society.
It means that I care about equality and fairness in society.
It means that I want to champion diversity and inclusion, empower my Muslim friends, colleagues and neighbours.
Anyone can be a supporter, no matter who you are or where you come from. We want as many people as possible to get involved.
By becoming a supporter of Islamophobia Awareness Month, you are contributing to making the world a better place and putting an end to Islamophobia.
Islamophobia has not been born of anything other than actions of those that claim to be of Islam. But you can see this is what they're pushing now, and this island, this Irish gig, is a big part of this game. And we have to be aware. Just on live too.
جيش فلسطين سهام الليل والتدرون مع صيحات الجند مع آيات الورد آتونا كما الرعد نصنع زمن المجد.
Is that what people are backing when they're throwing the flags around here?
Special guest who's here today. Thanks. We've had a great chat here in frozen London today. Sunday, the Devonish fundraiser of Irish Arts for Palestine to raise funds for aid.
I mean, what for aid for that we just watched? Is that what they're doing? Are people actually seeing this stuff? This is a bit worrying.
In and of itself, is it haram? The strongest view, haven't seen an evidence to say that it is. But are there things that happen at protests that could be haram, that are absolutely impossible to escape? For example, free mixing with women, at the very least. Men and women mixing with each other. Is that not something that is necessary at the protest? Yes or no? Let's not talk about other things. Let's not talk about the salah time that gets missed. Let's not talk about what? Standing next to what? A guy that's going to take it in the backside at night. Because that's who you're protesting with. That's who you're protesting with. Let's not talk about that. Let's not talk about that. At the very least, is it not that men and women are coming and free mixing together? They're going to stand with your sisters are coming out of their houses. Allah says, وَقَدْنَ فِي بُيُوتِكُمْ, stay in your house. And if you come out, sister, make sure it's in the niqab or at the very least a jilbab. At the very least a jilbab. But she's coming out with makeup, nothing. But it's not deen of Allah for us, humanitarian cause. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. So then, is Allah going to give victory to people that are disobeying Him outright? Like, if Allah is above the heavens and the earth, but above His throne, He's looking down at these people who are protesting, asking, not even asking Allah for help, asking kuffar to intervene. And they're with what? They're free mixing. I remember I said this in a video once, and people really got angry with me. One guy wanted to physically attack me, because he was like, people are being killed, and you're saying, you're worried about free mixing. I'm like, brother, wallahi, you're a shaitan. Wallahi, you're a shaitan, man. Because victory only comes from Allah. If you leave the free mixing, the victory will come. That
victory? What's going on that we're missing? The victory? What's a victory? When you're doing battle? What is this victory? Are you with me? What are they up to, these guys? And as I said, I hope that these guys are just fringe. But, you know what I'm saying? No, it's like this. What's this going to achieve? Why is the Christmas tree being attacked because of something that's going on in the Middle East? I mean, you know, we know today, don't we, that governments are out of control. Why? Why are people doing this? It's just a bit ridiculous. Now, what's this?
Do you think the politicians and media ignore what others around the country said was the most significant part of Ryan Casey's victim impact statement? Ryan Casey, of course, was the boyfriend of the murdered teacher, Aisling Murphy. He prefaced his victim impact statement by saying his girlfriend's murderer had lived off the state without contributing to it for 10 years. And then he said, I feel like this country is no longer the country that Aisling and I grew up in and has officially lost its innocence when a crime of this magnitude could be perpetrated in broad daylight. We have to once and for all, he said, start putting the safety of not only Irish people, but everybody in this country who works hard, pays taxes, raises families, and overall contributes to society first. Those were very interesting comments, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think elements of them were not good, frankly. I think they were incitement to hatred, and I think that's why the media left out aspects of them. This was an extremely heartbroken and devastated young man who has lost the partner of his life, but the race and nationality of the man who perpetrated that awful violence on Aisling and murdered her is irrelevant. And I can understand, you know, in the emotion and him feeling that, and he's entitled to his views, but I think the media has a responsibility to not report views that are incitement to hatred, and he is being held up as a hero of the far right now.
Far right.
So,
these people,
interesting you may call them, but I
complex, I suppose, is another word that you could use for them. I mean, I'm sure he would say they weren't meant to be incitement to hatred. Was it the right thing for the media to overlook them in those circumstances? I mean, was it an embarrassed overlooking of those comments, do you think?
I don't think so. I think they were right to not include them. They were said they were. I don't think that they were helpful. It's the kind of thing that, you know, the far right latches onto. That they latched onto the nationality of the man who attacked their children. And
so pointing out we have a problem with a particular identifiable group of folks isn't helpful. What are they saying? They'd have no intention of solving the crimes? I mean, same on Twitter when I used to say that, yeah, stuff like that. They used to go on ape shit. Like, whoa, we don't want to see that truth because that's real. No, it's much better if we carry on our fantasy.
I'd love them to go down to the courts and report on all the white Irish men who are perpetrating violence on Irish and immigrant women every day in the court. They're not doing that. So the nationality, what the problem here is violence against women and children. It's not the nationality of the people who are perpetrating it. The problem is misogyny and hatred and entitlement to inflict violence on women and children. It's another related issue and ill in society, but it has nothing to do with race.
Show me one example of where a white man has attacked a Muslim girl. White men don't do that. They do it to their own wives, usually their girlfriends, etc. But what a fine example of reverse speak. That was absolute garbage. How she can, for her to do that, is that the covenant? And as each time you see them with your face like that, they're realising the covenant they're in is a terrible thing. Is that what they're doing? Oh, it's just quite worrying that people are actually... Why would you do that? If somebody told me to talk that, no matter what position I were in, it'd be like, kiss my ass, and I'd wait for that one opportunity and blow it all out shop. But why do they keep doing it? Are they blackmailed? What is it? Now, this girl doesn't mince her words. And then... look at you, chaps.
With 7 very brave citizens who came here today to launch an initiative for a European Citizens Initiative. An initiative which will hopefully be accepted by the EU Commission, although I don't really hold my breath, to be quite frank, but I seriously hope we will be able to do that. These 7 citizens are so incredibly brave because they stand up against this despicable attempts by the globalitarian misanthropists to strip us of freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. They simply say no to the attempts of granting an unelected body governing powers. They simply say no. And that's what we all should do, because this will end if we simply say no. And that's what we're here to do today. Because an unelected body like WHO, who is controlled and run by multi-billionaires, should never be allowed to act in place of a democratically elected government. Never, ever. In democracies, ladies and gentlemen, it is government of the people, by the people, for the people. And any government of anywhere in the world who disregards this fundamental principle of democracy by supporting this unprecedented power grab by WHO is an anti-democrat demonstrating nothing but his utter contempt for the people. And these 7 brave citizens, they will not stand for this, and neither will we. I will expose anyone, whether it's a member of a government in a member state or a government around the world, or a member of parliament in the European member states or parliaments around the world, who do not respect the people and do not respect democracy. I will see to it they will be exposed. Each and every one of them, by name. Because guess what? There's elections coming up, and the people might be interested in who is responsible for the abolition of democracy. So, we are here today to tell you, WHO globalitarian misanthropists, we are here today to tell you, you picked this fight, you wanted this fight, well, guess what? You've got it. Let's fight. Because these brave citizens, my colleagues and I, we will not tire to fight you every step of the way. These brave 7 citizens and millions more around the world, these are the people you will have to reckon with from now on, because we are millions around the world. It is you that is the small fringe minority. You are the ones who do not have the right to dictate to the people what they want and what they don't want. So, take it from me, take it from us, take it from these 7 citizens who gathered here today. Take it from the millions and millions of people around the world. We will bring you down, and we will not tire until we have done just that. So brace yourselves. We are here, and the fight is on. So let's have the fight. Let's commence with the fights. Why don't we?
Good girl. I like her. She's all right. She doesn't mince her words.
The British People's Patience is warned in, and although we've made great progress on this issue, reducing the number of small boat crossings by 1/3 this year, something that everyone thought was impossible when I got this job, we've got more to go. I want to finish the job, and that's why I'll get the Rwanda scheme up and running.
Oh yeah, Rwanda scheme. He's still on that, is he? My God. And what's the other one have to say?
Intent that should there be an election next year that we win, then we will play our full part on the international stage, obviously towards those net zero targets, but also because of the huge benefit to millions of people back in the UK who desperately need those lower bills, that certainty. I've been talking to investors today who say they want to come on this journey to lower bills. We need to do it for so many people who are struggling right now.
Come on the journey.
I'm here as a state...
He wants you to come on a journey. Journey. They're like kids, aren't they? Like, oh, look, we're all going out today. We're going to go on a coach. I mean, for God's sake. And then we wonder why it's all going tits up. They're all complete lunatics. And honestly, you know, even they are divided. You have this going on in every religion. Well, exactly. I think this other that's not of the biblical tradition has took over it and now is mincing it up. But I mean, Muslims need to pay attention to what's going on in the wider world. China is already now moving against Muslims. It's moving against systems in China. Okay, so what they need you to do now is act absolutely ridiculously everywhere you are, and the hammer will come down. That's the game. So you think they're protecting you with this anti-Islamophobia stuff? No. They're ensuring you get to that point where you can do something stupid. And, yeah, 200 million man army, remember, China. That's Shipton. Or is it Shipton that? Or one of the others, I can't exactly remember, but you've got to look at the bigger picture. So you don't get trapped on these timelines that they've set up that they want you to tread. But that were interesting in the King's speech. There's stock. By taking stock, things have not worked as well as they expected. So, yeah, but you can see that were a speech about we are going to start pressing down a little bit harder. And I can't remember who it was, but one said way back in the day, you'll have a new world order by consent or by force. So they've gone for the consent, haven't they, for quite some time, and it's not going down very well after the first gig. So maybe they are indeed going to step up their game. Now, to do that, they would have to have a percentage of these migrants in security, essential arenas. It's not to say everybody that's there is going to be an arsehole, but let's just say the temptation is there. Is it not? Come on, let's think about that. That's right on the button. Where are we? It's mind control what he's saying. Who fucking hell? Magic. He's mad. He is. The ring is how the black magic works. It's mind control what he's saying. No need to see that face. It's language that black magic casting spells. Agency of the powerful, he said. Yes. Not even real money. Only real money is gold or silver. Class A propaganda. House of CC, the only real money is your labour. Everything else is a token to represent it. But ultimately, real money or exchange is labour. And capitalism is somebody others capitalising on your labour. Yeah, communism is they just take it all off you and give it to the state, which then gets incorporated by the capitalists. Win-win, the coin with two sides called left, right, capitalism, communism. That banker's on the edge, remember. Doesn't matter which way he flips it. If it's left up, oh, go on, you have a gig. Oh, it's right, you have a gig. Keep bringing it to daddy. That's the way it goes. Stock taking, yeah, I know. They use the words, they're telling you, but they're not telling you, if you know what I mean. Bitcoin just broke 40,000. Really? No, then. See what I mean about words. What is this bar steward is trying to tell us? Is they are talking about themselves, that's right. He or we, he's talking out loud. We race known as man. And they have guns. Yes, they have a lot of guns. And they have a lot of other toys as well. There's an interesting one I put up on my Facebook about how this AI can utilise Wi-Fi. Tune it to a camera. But the camera is so it can read your impulses, your thoughts. So basically it can create a picture and an image of what it is you were thinking. Apparently. I don't know whether that's true or not, but it's up there. It looks like it's coming from a reasonable kind of chap. And Jamie Fisher says, we're about to get price shocked. Well, yeah, very true. There's something going on here. They're up to something. Because it's not gone well at all. None of it's gone as well as they expected. It really is down to us. This is our time to say, no, thank you very much. I totally agree about our energy, but some think it's gold and silver. Exactly. Anyway, they can keep us divided. They will. Well, they certainly will. That's how it works. They were divided. They're mopping it up from whichever side you chose. Because ultimately, at the top, it's them. Heinz, the Bavarian Jew. I agree, Sean, says Gary Garcia. Well, I mean, that folder that didn't come up had some interesting stuff. It interlinked Lord Carrington, Edward Heath, and a couple of other politicians to Kissinger. It also pointed out that, by his own words, he said that he gave more information to the British intelligence than they did to the United States. It's a shame that I mean, let me just see if it'll come up this time, but I put some good images. I don't understand why it's not coming up, because it's all there. It should be coming. Let me just try and alter a couple of these things. It's not coming up, and that should be coming up. And it's not. I have no idea why. There was some very interesting data in there, and it probably would have took us about 15 minutes to go through it. So my apologies. But I think you'll get the picture anyway. Nobody really cares, do we? Let's be fair. Somebody's died. There's already been somebody took his place. I've been mentored forever, and he's ready to take the helm. So, chaps, thanks for joining. I hope you have a decent week. It's supposed to get a little bit milder towards the middle of next week, which has got to be good. It's a bit milder, or at least it's raining now. So maybe not going to be as cold as we get through the week, and that'll make a better mood, won't it? Anyway, so with that, I will say thanks for joining. Thanks for taking part. Thanks to you, moderators, and I will say till the next time.
Veronica.